Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for listening. Welcome to this week's episode of 15 with the Team, a live series where we, the Office of the Student Advocate, discuss common topics within that DC education system to help you become better informed and empowered in less than 15 minutes. My name is Valeria Popolicio, and I am joined by one of our student advocates, Renata Landrau, and members of the Decoding Dyslexia DC team.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renata Landrau. I'm one of the student advocates here in the Office of Student Advocate, and I'm excited for you to join us today to talk with the Decoding Dyslexia team. And I'll turn it over to Jen to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jen Hausfeld. I'm a co-founder of Decoding Dyslexia. I'm also a DCPS parent currently, and I am a reading interventionist in DC.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sheila Carson Carr, and I'm also one of the 4 co-founders of Decoding Dyslexia DC. I am a third-generation Washingtonian, have dyslexia, and children with dyslexia also.
Hi, I'm Laurie Maloney. I'm an academic language therapist. I'm also the former president of the DC Capital Area branch of the International Dyslexia Association and one of the 4 co-founders of Decoding Dyslexia DC.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm excited to have you here to talk with us about dyslexia, and more specifically, dyslexia within the context of DC education. So let's first start our conversation with, can you tell us what is dyslexia?
Sure. Dyslexia is referred to as the specific learning disability. It is usually inherited and reflects a difference in brain architecture. It affects about 5 to 20% of the population, depending upon which researcher you ask. But really the overwhelming majority of students in the city struggle with reading. So we really think about this as a general reading issue. Dyslexia represents difficulty with word level reading and spelling accuracy and fluency. It is not an indication of low intelligence or a lack of desire to learn. In fact, people with dyslexia tend to be quite bright often. And while it can't be outgrown, students can become good readers and spellers if they receive an appropriate education in the structure of the language, which we refer to as structured literacy, which is based on the science of reading.
Thank you. And since we have 3 of the 4 co-founders of Decoding Dyslexia here today, can you tell us the story of how Decoding Dyslexia came to be and what your role and goal is?
Yes, Decoding Dyslexia came to be because of my daughter telling me about a dyslexia conference that's been held in Annapolis, Maryland. And me and the other co-founder, who isn't here today, Carla Witt, went to Annapolis and met Lori at that meeting. And she said, oh, I have another parent who's concerned, had the same concerns that you had. So the 4 of us met at Tacoma Station Restaurant about 2 weeks after that. And that was the beginning of Decoding Dyslexia DC.
Wonderful. So great to hear how that story and how community involved the Decoding Dyslexia team has been. I know within the last year, we've had some exciting developments in terms of dyslexia, and we have a new dyslexia and reading law. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Addressing Dyslexia and Other Difficulties Amendment Act of 2020 is a 4-part law. The first part is annual screening for all K through 2 students in public and charter schools. That will kick in next year. Right now, OSSI is making a list of appropriate screeners, and next year it will be implemented. The second part of the law is to train all DC educators on dyslexia, which is the most common learning disability. And then they have to specifically train K2 teachers on what is known as the science of reading. So they specifically know how to identify and remediate students with these reading deficits. The third part of the law is reading intervention. So if the child meets the screening criteria on the screener, they are quickly moved into reading intervention so they can be remediated. And then also there's a notification policy, so parents are notified and then they know that there was screening and that their child, there are signs of dyslexia on the screening for their child. And the fourth part of the law is to ensure that by the 24-25 school year, all reading instruction is based on what is known as the science of reading. We are so proud of this law, because it was really made by and advocated by parents and teachers that did not directly benefit from the law because their child has already been failed by the system. And they advocated and took hours and hours out of their time to make sure that we are breaking the cycle and that we are no longer waiting for children to fail before they receive help.
And Jen, just a quick follow-up question there in regards to the law. Is it in effect right now? Is this something that parents can see changes happening in the schools this school year?
We are in the implementation phase. So right now, OSSI is making the list of screeners. The screeners and the intervention will be for next year. And then in the 24-25 school year is when the curriculum part will take place.
And additional information about the Addressing Dyslexia and Other Difficulties Amendment Act of 2020 can actually be found in the updated dyslexia guide that we have posted today and released today. And Sheila, you were such a big proponent of creating this guidebook and spreading information about dyslexia with families across DC. How did the guide come about?
Well, you know what? It's important that we take the time to go out to community events. I went to the back to school block party at Roosevelt maybe 3 years ago. And I saw Chancellor Farabee and was speaking to him about dyslexia. And he took me over to Mr. Davis. And Ruth, the school board member, was also there. So the three of us got together and they said, oh, that's a good idea. Let's see what we can do. And that is how just being at a community event can really spark something that will affect the whole city in a positive way.
Most definitely. Decoding dyslexia and the passing of this new dyslexia law is a shining example of how important it is, not only for our parents and our students to have their voices heard, but even our community members as well, because it all trickles down to our future, which is our youth. So tell us a little bit about why this Decoding Dyslexia guide is such a great resource for families to have.
Yeah. We did a study, we did some research a couple years ago. We surveyed teachers in the city, and what we found was that most did not know about dyslexia. And if they did, they didn't really know what to do about it in terms of intervention. So we thought that the handbook would be a great idea to put in the hands of parents so that they could understand what reading difficulties look like, why they happen, how they manifest in students from grade to grade, and more importantly, what parents can do about it. So this guidebook really interprets the law in a way that parents can access, and it allows them to be the best possible advocate for their child because it's very information rich. There's all kinds of resources right in that guide.
And much of what you're hearing us discuss today is located in that guide. Anyone who's looking for the guide, it was a partnership between the Office of the Student Advocate and the fabulous women over at Decoding Dyslexia DC, and you can find it right on our homepage. And we'll make sure that that's linked in our bio and on this Facebook description as well for you.
So if I'm a parent, what should I do if my child is struggling with reading or spelling?
If your child is struggling with reading and spelling, the child needs direct and explicit reading and spelling instruction focused on their deficits, on their decoding or reading deficits. It's really important to understand the assessments. The screening will take place starting next school year, but right now all schools do some sort of literacy assessment, but there are different kinds. There's some that focus on decoding, like really understanding the phonetic code of English, and then there's some that focus on comprehension. You want to focus on the one, that focuses focuses on phonics, phonemic awareness, and the code of English, because that'll tell you if your child has signs of dyslexia. And then if they do, like for example, DCPS uses the Dibbles assessment. There's different colors within that. There's, if your child is in the green or the blue, they're either proficient or advanced. But if they're in the yellow or the red, that means that they're not quite meeting the expectations, or they're below, very below the expectations. That's an indicator to parents that something is going on, especially in K-2, and that they need to make a plan with the teacher to intervene, because the only thing that is really going to remediate that child and make sure that they are proficient reader is if they get explicit reading instruction based on their deficits. I personally, am a former struggling reader. I was identified way too late, but then when I was in 3rd grade, I was placed in a special education, self-contained special education classroom. And you might think on paper that looks great. She's getting 6 hours a day of specialized instruction. I received no phonics instruction at all. And so as a result, I wasn't remediated until I was much older. So it's really important to, if your child is receiving this sort of intervention, what are they doing? What does the assessment say? Is there intervention based on their actual deficits? Because that's going to help your child become a proficient reader.
This guidebook that we created in partnership was really here to just be a foundational starting point for families in not only understanding dyslexia, but getting some clarity on how to move forward if you do find that your child's struggling with reading or spelling. But if anyone out there wants to get in contact with the DC Decoding Dyslexia team, how can they reach you guys?
There are several ways that you can reach us, because, you know, just like everybody else, we're out there on the media. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're, of course, on the net. So decodingdyslexiadc.org is our on internet, and Decoding Dyslexia DC is our Facebook connection, and we will be putting it in the comments later, so you don't have to worry about writing it down. When you look at it again, all the information will be there. But here's the exciting thing. This month's meeting, we're having Ms. Smith from the Office of State Superintendent of Education. She is the new person because of the law about implementing it in DC, and she's going to be our guest. So if you go to our website, we have a link there. She is asking for questions that you want to ask her for the Monday meeting. So we look forward to seeing y'all on Monday on the 26th with that. Thank you.
You can also email us at decodingdyslexiadc@gmail.com, and we can send you the link. The link is also to the meeting, is also on all of our social media pages on Twitter and Facebook.
Thank you so much for being here. To our partners from Dyslexia for joining us today. For those of you streaming on Facebook, as we've mentioned throughout, we released an updated version of the Dyslexia guidebook earlier today, and hopefully you can all see it on the screen right now. This guide is intended to be used as a toolkit for families and education stakeholders. The updated version has new information about the DC dyslexia law, decoding, the science of reading, effective reading instruction, assessments and screeners, and so much more. So be sure to check it out.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I just want everybody to know it's never too late. It's never too late. I didn't find out until I was 40 that I had dyslexia. And then once I realized that, I could identify in my child, who's now had a master's in social work from Howard University, and my grandchildren. So it's never too late. Keep trying, and you will find the right thing that you need. And we're here to help.
Yeah, I second that. I think when your child is struggling as a current parent of small children, you're so worried about them and you're not really sure where to go. This guide is a great starting off point. And I think it's important to see the big picture, that once you get that child help, they will be able to do all the things that you envision that they can.
Most definitely. I want to say thank you so much again to fabulous women over at Decoding Dyslexia DC for joining us. This is such an insightful conversation. I hope that everyone listening was able to gain something from it. Again, if you're looking for a copy of that guide, the Decoding Dyslexia team will have it on their site as well as located on our site. We can be found at studentadvocate.dc.gov. And if you'd like to call us or reach out, we are always here. You can reach us at 202-741-4692 or email us at student.advocate@dc.gov. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you on our next episode of 15 with the Team.
Thank you.
Thank you.